Good evening, I'm Jeff Glor. Flags are at half-staff across the country in honor of Antonin Scalia, the Supreme Court justice who died suddenly yesterday while vacationing with friends at a ranch in Texas. He was 79 years old. Justice Scalia's body was taken to a funeral home in El Paso overnight and will be flown back to his family in Virginia. Scalia's death leaves the court split, 4 conservatives, 4 liberals, which will impact legal decisions and is already impacting the presidential election. The question, when and how will his seat be filled? We begin with our chief legal correspondent, Jan Crawford.
He was a giant in the law. Known for his sharp intellect and often sharp tongue, Justice Scalia's views on the Constitution influenced a generation. Nominated by President Reagan, Scalia joined the court with an established philosophy that judges should follow the original understanding of the Constitution. One of his most significant opinions was the landmark ruling that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual right to bear arms. He could seem combative, but despite the partisan rancor of Washington, Scalia had deep friendships with liberal justices, notably Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who shared his affinity for opera. His disagreements, he said in a 2008 interview with 60 Minutes, weren't personal.
I attack ideas, I don't attack people, and some very good people have some very bad ideas.
In a statement, Ginsburg said they were best buddies, and his colorful critiques made her opinions better. Justice Scalia nailed all the weak spots, the applesauce and argle-bargle, as Scalia put it, and gave me just what I needed to strengthen the majority opinion.
I could be charming and combative at the same time. What's contradictory between the two? I love to argue. I've always loved to argue. And I love to point out the weaknesses of the opposing arguments.
His death will have an immediate impact on the court. It now will be divided 4-4 along ideological lines. A liberal nominee would move the once conservative court to the left, and the battle lines quickly were drawn. The president urged the Senate to have a fair and timely hearing.
These are responsibilities that I take seriously, as should everyone. They're bigger than any one party. They are about our democracy.
But with so much at stake, Republicans already were vowing to block any nominee. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said this vacancy should not be filled until we have a new president. Paul Clement clerked for Justice Scalia and has argued 80 cases before the court.
He thought, based on his methodology, that there were right and wrong answers. And as a result, if he thought the court was taking a wrong turn, he was going to tell him that.
In 2008, Scalia said he couldn't imagine doing anything else.
When I first came on the court, I thought I would for sure get off as soon as I could, which would have been when I turned 65, because, you know, justices retire at full salary. So there's no reason not to leave and go off and do something else. But I cannot, what happened is simply I cannot think of what I would do for an encore. I can't think of any other job that I would find as interesting and as satisfying.
And Jan Crawford joins us now from our D.C. bureau. Jan, what happens when and if Republicans refuse to confirm President Obama's nominee to the court?
Well, I mean, I think it is highly likely they're going to do what they say and refuse to confirm. And I think this confrontation is going to happen pretty quickly. Now, the White House did say this afternoon, late this afternoon, that President Obama would not be nominating a replacement this week. But it probably won't drag on too long. I think it's widely expected to be within the next couple weeks. And then the ball is in the Senate's court. And it's unclear if they will even schedule hearings. But remember, I mean, even if the Senate were going to confirm someone, it's unlikely that a new justice would be deciding cases this session. I mean, the confirmation process for what we're talking about here, a lifetime appointment, that takes time, and that is when everyone is on the same page.
Well, let's talk about this session, though, Jan, because there are some controversial cases that are supposed to be argued and decided here.
Right. And I mean, controversial cases on those hot button social issues, I mean, they usually divide this court along ideological lines 5-4. And now with Scalia's passing, the court on most of those is going to be divided 4-4. And so when you've got a decision that's 4-4, I mean, that's a tie. The lower court decision is going to stand but there's no national precedent. So the issue isn't finally resolved, once and for all. And that's going to have a big impact this term because there are some really controversial cases, Jeff. I mean, there is a case from Texas on tougher regulations for abortion clinics. There's a case on affirmative action on the use of race and college admissions. And believe it or not, there is another challenge to Obamacare, as well as cases on presidential power, like President Obama's executive orders on immigration, environmental policy. Most of those cases now are unlikely to have a majority decision, so they may not really bring about a sweeping change in the law.
Jan Crawford from D.C., once again, thank you very much, Jan.